The dust of the battlefield swirled around him. Tens of thousands of soldiers stood in perfect silence, waiting for his signal. Across the plain, the Persian army stretched as far as the eye could see, shields glinting, banners snapping in the wind, horses stomping the earth in restless rhythm. At the center of it all, a young man sat atop his horse, his eyes locked on the enemy. He was barely 25, but his name already carried weight that shook empires. This was Alexander of Macedon, and he wasn't here to fight for survival. He was here to take the world. But how does a boy, born in a small kingdom on the edge of Greece, rise to command the largest empire the world had ever seen, all before his 30th birthday? To understand, we have to go back. Alexander wasn't just another prince. He was born in 356 BCE in the city of Pella, son of King Philip II of Macedon and Queen Olympias, a woman with fire in her veins and ambition sharper than any sword. From the very beginning, whispers surrounded him. Legends claimed that on the night Alexander was born, the Temple of Artemis, one of the great wonders of the world, burned down. Some saw it as a bad omen, others as a sign that destiny itself had shifted. Olympias filled his childhood with tales of heroes. She told him he was a descendant of Achilles, the invincible warrior of Troy. She said the gods had chosen him for greatness, and Alexander believed her. His father, Philip, was no ordinary king either. A brilliant general, Philip had transformed Macedon from a weak, fragmented kingdom into a rising military power. But for Alexander, his father's shadow was both inspiring and suffocating. Then came the tutor who changed everything, Aristotle. Yes, that Aristotle. Under his guidance, Alexander devoured knowledge, philosophy, science, politics, medicine. He wasn't just training to be a soldier, he was training to be something more, a king, a conqueror, a legend. Still, Alexander wasn't just brains. By his teenage years, he was already showing sparks of leadership. At just 16, while his father campaigned elsewhere, Alexander crushed a rebellion and founded a city, naming it Alexandropolis, of course. But destiny would come faster than he ever imagined. In 336 BCE, King Philip was assassinated. The court erupted into chaos. Rivals circled like vultures. Many believed Macedon would collapse without Philip's iron hand. But standing at just 20 years old, Alexander seized the throne. And he didn't just seize it, he gripped it like a man possessed. One by one, he crushed rebellions. When the city of Thebes revolted, Alexander didn't hesitate. He stormed the city, slaughtered thousands, and burned it to the ground, leaving only temples and the house of the poet Pindar. The message was clear: defy me and I will erase you. Greece was his. Now he looked east. Alexander's ambition had no borders. His eyes were fixed on Persia, the richest, most powerful empire on... In 334 BCE, he crossed into Asia Minor with just 35,000 men, a fraction of Persia's might. Everyone thought it was suicide. But Alexander wasn't just a warrior. He was a master of strategy, charisma, and psychological warfare. At the Battle of Granicus, he charged directly into the Persian line, nearly dying in the process. His men saw their king bleed, and something unshakable was forged that day: loyalty beyond reason. Victory followed victory. At Issus, he faced King Darius III of Persia himself. Outnumbered, Alexander used the terrain to trap the massive Persian army, breaking them apart like glass. Darius fled, leaving behind his family. Alexander treated the captured queen and princess with respect, refusing to harm them. Word spread. He was not just a conqueror. He was a king of both terror and honor. By 332 BCE, he marched into Egypt. The people, weary of Persian rule, welcomed him as a liberator. There, he founded the city that would bear his name for eternity, Alexandria. But Alexander wanted more than land. He wanted destiny. At the Oracle of Siwa, in the heart of the desert, the priests hailed him as the son of Zeus Ammon. Alexander didn't deny it. From that day, he carried himself not just as a king, but as a god in the making. In 331 BCE, Alexander faced Darius once again, this time at Gaugamela. It was the ultimate clash. 47,000 Macedonians against perhaps 200,000 Persians. On that battlefield, Alexander showed why he was unstoppable. Instead of fighting head-on, he feinted, drew the Persians out of position, and then, like a thunderbolt, led his cavalry straight through the gap, driving directly at Darius. Once again, the great king of Persia fled in panic. His empire collapsed with him. In less than 5 years, Alexander had conquered the greatest power the world had ever known. He was just 25 years old, but Alexander wasn't satisfied. He marched further east into lands Greeks barely knew existed, through the burning deserts of Iran, into the mountains of Afghanistan, across the rivers of India. At the Battle of Hydaspes, he faced King Porus, whose army included war elephants, beasts the Macedonians had never seen before. The ground shook, men were trampled, chaos reigned. But Alexander adapted, as always. With brilliant maneuvering, he turned terror into triumph. Yet even in victory, cracks began to show. His men were exhausted. They had marched thousands of miles, fought countless battles, and now, standing at the edge of the unknown in India, they refused to go further. For the first time, Alexander had to turn back. By now, Alexander was no longer just a king, he was a myth. But power came with darkness. He grew increasingly paranoid, executing close friends he suspected of betrayal. The more he conquered, the more ruthless he became. He began adopting Persian customs, demanding people bow before him as if he were a living god. Many of his Macedonian officers hated it, but who dared oppose him? Then came Babylon. In 323 BCE, after years of ceaseless conquest, Alexander fell ill. Some say it was malaria. Others whisper it was poison. For days he lay in fever, unable to speak. When his generals asked who should inherit his empire, Alexander is said to have whispered, "To the strongest." He was 32 years old. And then, he was gone. The man who had never lost a battle, the boy who had conquered the known world, the king who believed himself a god, dead, suddenly, mysteriously. His empire stretched from Greece to India, a web of cities, cultures, and armies. But without him, it was like a body without a heart. His generals tore it apart in bloody civil wars. The empire he built in a decade collapsed in less than one. And that's the twist of Alexander's story. He could defeat armies 10 times his size. He could bend nations to his will. He could inspire loyalty, terror, and worship. But the one thing he couldn't conquer was time. Today, thousands of years later, we still remember his name, Alexander the Great. Not because his empire lasted, it didn't. But because in just 12 short years, he burned so brightly, so fiercely, that history itself was forced to remember.